Welcome back to Calling All Beings, everybody. I'm your host, DJ, and oh boy, do we have a panel of some of your very faves tonight. To my left, I guess on your screen, it's my right, but if I go like that, there it goes. I'm pointing to my left. It is content creator Ms.Demeanor. Hello, ma'am. Welcome. Bienvenidos.
Howdy ho, chickadees. You're
interested in Bigfoot and all that, so I think you're in a perfect place. We have a prolific Bigfoot thought leader, I should call it, in Dr. Simeon Hines. So we're probably going to get into some of that tonight, even though it's a missing persons episode. Next to her is none other than my co-host, who first appeared on Cab 1 year ago today, Boston Bia.
Hello.
Welcome
It's
back.
been a few days. Good to see everyone.
Yeah, I know, right? Like you were on with Janet last night. We do a lot of collabs together. We've just got a great team here. Below her is our primary Cab moderator, the legendary Jules of the Wood. Wait, come back, applause. It's got to recycle back around. There it goes. All right. All right. Welcome, Jules. Good to have you on this side of the camera.
Thank you.
Somebody, private investigator, good to have you here, from Georgia and Florida, who has not yet investigated Bigfoot. She's just waiting for that client to come and say, pay me to go and find these guys. Miss Loren Katie. Welcome, Loren. Can I hear you? No, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you now. Okay. And just to her right is none other than a man who's been on many films about Bigfoot, has been interviewed many times. I'm curious to know, Dr. Simeon Hines. Let me just first start with that. Dr. Hines, have you done any work into missing persons, or have you just focused on Bigfoot primarily?
We've done some remote viewing sessions on missing persons occasionally. It's not something that we've really focused on. We have also started what we call the Bigfoot Remote Viewing Project, which we're going to continue in the not too distant future to see if we can get a little more information about these mysterious beings that we don't really understand very well.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that. I understand why you are remote viewing them. Could you explain to the audience why that communication with them is very possible due to these sort of similarities between the two of us?
Well, that's the idea, DJ. I mean, the Bigfoot don't really tell us very much information about themselves. They do to particular people that have special relationships with them in their neighborhood, or they feel that they've developed a gifting relationship with the creatures. And maybe Native Americans got to know some of them, but they don't really seem to want to interact with us very much. So we've thought, Jules is part of our group, maybe if we used RV, we could create some sort of communication, to kind of begin a dialogue with them. They're extremely mysterious, and they seem to avoid humans for the most part. And sometimes they don't, but they will interact with particular people or groups that I'm aware of, but for the most part, they don't seem to want to interact with us. And, we're not sure if they just don't like us or if they just think we're weird. But that was an idea to see if we could interact with them through RV, which, is this protocol, as you're aware, that the military developed in the 70s for psychic espionage based on, the Soviets had their own program. China had a program in developing psychotronics, psychic functioning. So it's just one avenue. Now, the thing about RV, and I just came back from the IRVA conference in Cloudcroft, New Mexico, near Alamogordo. The thing about it, and some of the speakers who had been in the Defense Intelligence Agency on the intelligence side or the RV side, reinforced to us that RV is only as good as the feedback information you can eventually get from other sources, whether it's other people or electronically or however you're getting information. So I think people have this overly optimistic view of RV that it's a sort of be all and end all to getting information. It's only really good if you can get feedback definitively in the future so you can verify what you got. If it's just in a vacuum, you really never know, for the most part. So we like to get some sort of feedback, whether it's some future event where we can quantify or objectify that we know it turned out a certain way. And in the case of missing persons, we'd like to be able to work with someone on the ground to get some sort of definitive feedback one way or another if we're on track or not.
And I think the success rate of, I think it was SRI at the Stanford Research Institute that was running these, their success rate was, correct me if I'm wrong, Sim, was it around 70% with them being able to see? I mean, they saw, if you guys saw The Hunt for Red October, Joe McMoneagle saw that submarine that they did the movie about where it was hidden and out of sight, and told intelligence officials about it.
Yeah, so the program was run in different venues. Some of it was done at DIA. The research side was sometimes done at SRI. And that particular viewing, if I'm not mistaken, was for, I believe that was for a DIA tasking, where, yeah, he correctly saw in a big building somewhere on the North Sea or somewhere where they launch ships. He correctly identified what was being built in there. They thought it was an aircraft carrier or something. He had correctly identified it as a submarine with a new type of submarine, the largest submarine that had ever been built, with the missile tubes forward of the conning tower, which at the time had never been seen before. So everyone said, sure, tell us about it. And then when it was launched a few months later, everyone said, well, he just got lucky.
Well, he was made fun of by a high official at the CIA that ended up under two administrations, Obama and George W. Bush. He served as CIA director. I can't, his name is Robert Gates, right? Made fun of him. He still has that note that Bob Gates wrote back to him about making fun of him. And then he said, hey, what do you think now, Bob? That kind of thing.
No, RV can be incredibly accurate at times, and it really helps to get some definitive feedback in the future or just after the viewer finishes their session, as Jules knows, just to see, were they completely creating this in their imagination, or they're actually connecting with some target site distant in the future or different place on the planet or even the universe. So it's not this perfect tool that answers. It's not like this crystal ball. Right. I think people have a mistaken idea. It's a crystal ball. You can assign the viewers on it. They're going to get information. It's not always accurate, but sometimes it's exceptionally accurate. There's also the famous case, DJ, where they found that missing Soviet Badger bomber where the Libyan pilot defected and the plane crashed in what was called the Democratic Republic of the Congo back then, that huge country in the center of Africa, rainforest. And they the people at SRI and Dale Graff, who did the work from Wright Patterson in Ohio, they were given medals by Carter for, finding the plane, and then they send in a special forces Delta team to get the electronics, which is what's really valuable, from one military versus another. They get the Delta team in there. It's exactly where the viewers said it was going to be, within a few miles. Africa's a big continent. They got it within a few miles with no front loading. So they were just told a plane was missing in Africa. That's the cue. I asked Dale about it. From that one cue, a plane is missing in Africa. They got it down to a couple of miles. Different viewers were, saw different aspects of the target, and one drew a map, and there it was, which is, the odds of that are just, millions to one. I mean, an entire continent, you got it just within a couple scores. So sometimes it can be exceptionally accurate if you can send in a team of folks afterwards to go in and look. And Jules and I can't always do that with our viewing group. We can't always send in a group immediately, say, let's go take a look. The last target we did was the undersurface of the moon Europa. From Jupiter, we wanted to see if it was actually liquid or not. Jules got a lot of ocean liquid type stuff. We can't actually want to is there life there, So that's a sort of a more fun target where we can't completely verify it, but some aspects fit with what science believes is going on. And that's sort of the nature of it. And so with regards to this topic today of missing persons and so forth, missing 411, we don't always have a lot of information. I mean, sometimes there is follow-up information on these cases, which would help a viewer later on to see if, they were on target or not. So it's not a crystal ball, but it can be useful. And that's my understanding and experience with it.
Fire away, ladies.
I had a quick question. Is there any sort of idea of why these beings would be avoiding us? Is there any theory or supposition? I'm just curious about
Great question.
What the research has shown up to this point.
Well, that is really a big question.
Sorry.
We don't really know. They've avoided us to the extent that modern science doesn't even officially accept the idea that they exist, even though there was a Wall Street Journal about this just a couple days ago, folks, if you'll look.
Wow.
About I forget what channel the film is on, a documentary of a missing persons, and it's questioning whether Bigfoot did it or whether it's criminality involved. And sometimes people do blame Bigfoot when it's actually, criminal humans involved instead. But to answer your question, there seems to be a long-standing hostility between Bigfoot. I mean, going back to the first Native Americans that crossed over the Bering Straits into the North American continent, they said the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, they all had hundreds of different names for Sasquatch. They were already here. And there are accounts of them interacting with Native Americans, and each tribe has its own versions of this, and some are extremely hostile. It's completely like a state of war. And I would imagine that the Bigfoot felt like their territory was being invaded. My view is that they're a type of ancient humans, or in that realm of what we would call human, more than being just a primate on that scale of the primate family, based on the fact that I've talked with people who said their grandparents traded with them as recently as 1913. Someone from the Spokane tribe that I met at a Bigfoot conference in Forks, Washington a few years ago. And so there are a number of Native Americans who are still alive who said that their grandparents traded with Sasquatch. So that doesn't sound to me like an animal. That's something that has sort of kind of the brain function we have too.
Intelligent.
Yeah, intelligence. They have language. The anthropological side of it just looks at their tracks, the hair, the vocalizations, and the physical appearance. But if you look at the behavior, it's more in the direction of human. But then when you keep looking at the behavior, it's more in the direction of paranormal human, because people often report these psychic types of interactions with them, mind speak, the orbs, their transparency that appears sometimes, or appears, the transparency appears. They become transparent, they become luminescent, they seem to be able to move in ways that defy ordinary matter and transform themselves into other objects. So they seem to be, in my view, a very ancient type of humanoid that has what we call psychic functioning, telepathic functioning, what would appear to be what we call paranormal, because I actually think that we all have this ability, but we need some training in it because it's sort of been educated out of us by our Western culture, our background that doesn't believe in these things. So I think these are natural abilities that they just haven't lost. But for whatever reason, it seems that they see us as artificial, the way we see extraterrestrials riding around in their little ships and so forth, because we rely on all this technology and they don't need houses, they don't need cars, and they seem to be just fine. They seem to be able to generate their own, energy and resources. I mean, they eat like we do, and they're
omnivore.
Raw meat and catch animals. You can talk to people who've seen this. They just outrun other forest animals.
That was something else. I have so many questions.
Go ahead. But we don't know that. I mean, to answer your question, we don't totally know. There's friendly relations and there's considerably hostile relations, which is what leads me to believe that some of the missing persons that we get in these parks may be due to Bigfoot and other cryptids, just based on the cases we have of them taking people. And I've talked to Native Americans who said that they took members of their tribe and then they brought them back.
Yep.
A week later, 2 weeks later. I know.
Too high maintenance. That'd be me. They'd bring me back. They'd be like, whoa.
You have a hairdryer?
Who said that they took a member of their tribe. This person's a member of one of the Alaskan tribes in Central Alaska. And then she came back years later. She couldn't even speak the native language anymore. She had completely lost the ability. She had completely lost her Native American culture. They hadn't hurt her in any way. She had become part of their tribe, and then she came back. So they do take humans sometimes. So this is an avenue that needs to be investigated. And I'll just say, if the government knows anything about this, they're not saying anything. For whatever reason, they're not telling us anything about this, but they know something. They have to know something because the government controls huge amounts of land across the United States. They have to know what's going on.
I'm pretty sure that the Department of the Interior has a special access program, a SAP, where this information is housed. And if you're not, you can have all the clearance you want, but if you don't have a need to know what's in that SAP, you can be in the DOD. Then if you don't have a need to know, you're not read into it. But there have been national forest rangers who have discussed these things with, even given training to like California state forest rangers as part of their training camp about what to do if you interact or you come upon a Bigfoot, what your behavior should be. And then after that, they basically say at the end of the court, don't tell anybody. But there are people that have talked about receiving that training, as well as many forest rangers have said, we know that they're there because people have come from campsites. I want, if Loren Katie can read this is Scott's question. And then I think Ms.Demeanor has a question. Can you read that, Loren?
Yeah, Scott says, I will always play the skeptic. Where are the skeletons of these beings? Challenge question just for fun.
I mean, Dr. Hein, people don't see bare skeletons. First of all, if you look at a guy like from Finding Bigfoot, James Bobo Fay, he has probably been invited to more sites of people who have had habituation on or near their property than anybody, just because of the fact that he's famous. And he says if there's one of the things he's sure about, there was only a list of 3 things that he's sure about. One of them was language. The other one is that they bury their dead. What's your thought on that, Dr. Hunt?
Right. And I have read cases of people who've discovered them on archaeological digs, and the evidence has been suppressed and hidden. They are told by their superiors if it's on national forest land just to get rid of the evidence. Because it would just, nobody wants to open this can of worms in the government, it seems, especially not people that work in rural forested properties of the government. They don't want this to be something that's known about for whatever reason. It's just like institutions don't want to change, and it would, like, it's a Endangered Species Act impact like no one's ever seen before. It completely changes land use in the United States once this species is accepted to exist. Completely changes it. So I've read cases where the bones have been discovered, bodies have been discovered, and they just said, just do whatever you have to. We just don't want to see it. And that's where some of it is going. But then you go, now this goes to what Dave Paulides has talked about, and he's written in his books about the Smithsonian taking the bones over the centuries in these news articles that he's uncovered, that various Bigfoot researchers, Ray Crow from the Track Record and other people that have researched this in the past and collected all the evidence. And Dave Paulides got bought Ray's database. And in that database are news articles of bones being found of giants in the 1800s. And it always said that the Smithsonian took possession of these bones, and they say, well, we don't have it anymore. So, I mean, maybe DJ's right that this goes into some special access program. It wouldn't be surprising, because it's just that institutions and bureaucracies don't like to change very much. And this completely changes our understanding of intelligence on Earth, who we are. It would have a big impact to officially recognize it, I think, even though, as DJ is suggesting, hush hush under the surface, this is something that's talked about in national parks, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, because I've talked to people, and Jules has been in our Bigfoot Zoom group where we've had people come in and share their stories, which it's open to the public, and they have shared stories of being on BLM land and other military properties and stuff where they have encountered these beings, and they were there on official business, archaeological digs and so forth. So, I mean, I'm 100% sure that there are people in these agencies that DJ's mentioning that know about this.
Yeah, Fort Lewis in Washington. Yeah. There was one soldier who was doing opposition forces for a special forces group that was out there. He came on Sasquatch Chronicles. He reported that he saw 2 Bigfoot that had been shot. And then it was like 90 days later, one of the special forces guys came on. And while he wouldn't name what they shot, he basically substantiated the story. And I want to talk about something else, about 3 forest fires where Bigfoots were pulled out of there, burnt and injured. One of them was Mount St. Helens, which everybody here is familiar with. Another one was called Battle Mountain in Nevada. And another one happened in the Apalachicola Forest in Florida, which I know Loren Katie's familiar with. And there was a state forest ranger there who hit one. It basically ran into his pickup truck trying to get rescued. They basically loaded this creature into the back of the pickup truck, burnt. They took it to the base camp where they had a veterinarian there that was tending to any animal that was salvageable, and in this case, the Bigfoot. And then a couple of federal agents showed up. They said, show us where you found the Bigfoot. So they took he and his partner out in their truck, out to the spot. And they said, if you like your retirement, if you want your retirement, you're going to forget that this happened. And at Battle Mountain, a very similar thing happened. I heard a government employee talk about what he saw there. And it also happened at Mount St. Helens. All 3 of those had Bigfoot come out of the forest, approach personnel, forest fighting personnel that had EMTs there, and get medical care. So I'm sure that both Julia and Simeon are familiar with these. Let's watch some missing. Ms.Demeanor, do you want to get at a Bigfoot question before we get into missing? No?
I think it'll go take us down another path. So,
okay.
No.
we can get it at the end because, man, it's an endless. And by the way, there are cave drawings today that you can see in the Southwest that remain, that the Indians drew Native Americans themselves and these creatures. And you're going to look at them and you're going to look at the natives and this big thing that's standing in front of them that they're handing something to. So, I mean, that endures, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of years later. All right, let's get into some missing 411, see where we get with this. And here we, I think I just, good job, DJ. There it goes. Okay, cool. Here we go. All right. Tell me if you guys.
They say that mountains hold secrets deep in the Sierra
okay?
Nevada, where ancient rocks keep silent
Everybody
secrets,
good?
and events unfold that will make your blood run cold. Experienced climbers Brandon and Kayla Adams disappear on Forester Pass, leaving their backpacks behind on a lonely boulder. 6-year-old Benjamin Porter vanishes into thin air in an open meadow near Mount Rainier, only to be found alive 16 days later at an altitude inaccessible even to adults. Professor Martin Schultz, a geology legend, disappears on the slopes of Mount Whitney, leaving only his hammer and backpack behind. At the same time, his jacket mysteriously appears hundreds of feet higher up. What are these mountains hiding? What forces are taking people away without a trace? Today you will hear 3 inexplicable stories of missing hikers that defy conventional understanding. On the 23rd of September 2001, Brandon and Kayla Adams, a married couple, set out on a hike along a section of the legendary Pacific Crest Trail, passing through Forester Pass, the highest point of the route at 13,053 feet above sea level. Brandon, 28, and Kayla, 31, were experienced climbers from San Diego who had spent the past 7 years exploring the Sierra Nevada mountains. They met at a climbing club, got married 3 years ago, and made hiking the center of their life together. Brandon worked as an engineer at a technology company, and Kayla taught biology at a high school. Every summer, they took time off work and went on multi-day hikes, documenting their routes in a detailed journal. Their friends knew the couple as mountain enthusiasts who carefully planned each hike, studied maps and weather conditions, and always had a backup plan in case of unforeseen circumstances. Forester Pass is located on the border of Kings Canyon National Park and Sequoia National Park at an altitude of over 13,000 feet, where there is 40% less oxygen than at sea level. It is a harsh place. Steep rock walls on both sides, no vegetation, only bare rocks and granite cliffs. The weather here is unpredictable even in the summer months. By the end of September, temperatures can drop below freezing by evening. The Adams were aware of these risks and prepared accordingly. Their backpacks contained all the necessary equipment: warm clothing, sleeping bags rated to -10 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 days worth of food, a camping stove, a first aid kit, a GPS navigator, flashlights, whistles for signaling distress, and topographic maps. Brandon, who was more experienced in mountaineering, also took basic climbing equipment: a rope, carabiners, and a belay system. They set off early in the morning, around 6 o'clock, with the intention of crossing the pass and descending to the other side before nightfall. The weather was perfect: clear skies, excellent visibility, and moderate winds. The climb to the pass took several hours. By noon, they had reached the summit. In their diary found later, there is an entry made by Kayla. 12:35 p.m. at Forester Pass. Incredible view of the valley. Wind is strong, but the sun is warm. Brandon suggested stopping for lunch and an hour's rest before the descent. Tired, but happy. Temperature around 45 degrees. That was the last entry. Around 5 p.m. that same day, a group of 4 hikers from Oregon, 2 brothers and their wives, climbed Forester Pass from the opposite side. Jack Morrison, a 33-year-old teacher, was the first to notice something strange. Near a large granite boulder about 100 feet from the trail stood 2 hiking backpacks leaning against the rock. There was no one around. The group called out, thinking the backpack owners had stepped away to relieve themselves or take pictures. There was no answer. The echo bounced off the rock walls and died away. Morrison approached the backpacks. They were clearly not abandoned. neatly placed, all zippers closed. One had a tag with the name Brandon Adams on it, the other Kayla Adams. The group began searching for the backpack's owners. The pass was an open space with excellent visibility for several hundred yards. There was nowhere to hide. The rock walls rose almost vertically on both sides. The trail was clearly visible for a mile in every direction. If someone had been descending or ascending, they would have been visible, but there was no one. Morrison and his group spent 40 minutes searching the area, checking the crevices between the boulders, calling out loudly. Silence. It was getting colder, the temperature was dropping, and it was starting to get dark. The group decided to descend to the nearest ranger station and report their findings. The descent took 3.5 hours. By 10 p.m., Morrison had reached the station. The ranger on duty, Thomas Elliott, immediately contacted the Sequoia National Park Coordination Center. Given the altitude and nighttime temperatures, which could drop to 10 degrees Fahrenheit at Forester Pass in late September, every hour was critical. By midnight, a team of 8 rangers and 2 dog handlers with search dogs had been assembled. However, climbing the pass at night was too dangerous. Narrow trails, steep slopes, risk of falling. They decided to wait until dawn. In the morning, the search team began the ascent. By 9 o'clock, they had reached the pass. The backpacks were still in the same place. The rangers conducted an initial inspection of the contents. Inside was all the necessary equipment: warm clothes, sleeping bags, food partially eaten, wrappers from energy bars, empty cheese packaging, a camping stove, and a GPS navigator. The last recorded GPS point corresponded to the pass location, 12 hours and 42 minutes earlier. After that, the device did not register any movement. The dog handlers released the dogs, 2 trained German shepherds with many years of experience in searching for missing people. The dogs were given clothes from the backpacks to sniff. The dogs' reaction was unusual. Both shepherds approached the backpacks, sniffed them intently, then began circling, whining. After a few minutes, both dogs lay down on the rocks and refused to continue working. Dog handler Marcus Jenkins, who had been working with these dogs for 23 years, was stunned. For the first time in my entire career, both dogs refused to work at the same time, he told the search team captain. The search operation was immediately expanded. By evening, 50 rangers and volunteers were working at the site. The area was divided into sectors. Teams of climbers began checking rock walls, crevices, and hard-to-reach areas. A helicopter flew over the area equipped with thermal imaging equipment. All possible descent routes were checked, both on official trails and in wild places. Brandon's parents, Robert and Mary Adams of San Diego, and Kayla's mother, Barbara Turner, arrived at the search site on the second day. Robert, a 62-year-old retired Marine colonel, tried to remain calm. "My son is an experienced climber. He knows the mountains. He and Kayla were always careful, always followed safety protocols. They had all the necessary equipment," he repeated over and over again. The Tulare County Sheriff's Office investigation team considered several versions of what happened. The first was an accident. Brandon and Kayla may have left their backpacks to explore the area or take pictures of the views. One of them may have slipped, fallen, and pulled the other down with them while trying to help. However, an examination of the edge of the pass revealed no signs of a fall, no broken rocks, no scuff marks on the cliffs, no scraps of clothing. The second theory was that they decided to descend via an unusual route, got lost, or were trapped somewhere in the rugged terrain. The third, criminal version seemed unlikely. At an altitude of over 13,000 feet, other people are rarely encountered, especially at the end of September. Morrison's group was the first to climb the pass after the Adams couple. The search continued for 9 days without significant results. The area within a 10-mile radius of the pass was checked. Climbers descended all possible routes on both sides. Caves, crevices, and ravines were checked. They flew hundreds of square miles by helicopter. More than 300 volunteers participated in the operation. The Adams and Turner families offered a reward of $50,000 for information on the whereabouts of the missing persons. On the 4th of October, 11 days after their disappearance, a group of experienced climbers from Berkeley was making a technical ascent on a remote route at about 11,800 feet, about 1.5 miles south of Forester Pass. The route passed through a narrow gorge between sheer rock walls. a place that required climbing equipment and experience. Michael Stone noticed something bright down in the crevice. After rappelling down, he discovered a woman's body. The body was taken to the Tulare County morgue. The medical examiner identified her as Kayla Adams from her dental records. Kayla was wearing the same clothes she had on the day she disappeared: a light fleece jacket, hiking pants, and a t-shirt. She had no shoes on. An examination of her feet revealed minimal damage, a few minor abrasions and scratches, but nothing serious. The body was found 1,350 feet below Forester Pass. How Kayla got there remained a mystery. Descending into this ravine would have required either climbing equipment and experience or a fall. However, the body showed no injuries typical of a fall from a height. No broken bones, massive bruises, or internal damage. The pathologist determined the cause of death to be hypothermia complicated by dehydration. The medical report noted that Kayla was conscious for at least several days after her disappearance. She moved around and tried to get out. There were abrasions on her hands, indicating attempts to climb the rocks. But the absence of serious injuries in such rugged terrain remained inexplicable. How could an experienced climber descend into a narrow gorge surrounded by sheer walls without equipment or shoes? Why did she take off her boots? Experts in extreme survival offered several hypotheses. Dr. Elizabeth Connor, a mountain medicine specialist at the University of California, explained, "In a state of hypothermia, a person experiences a paradoxical sensation of heat. This is a well-documented phenomenon. Victims of hypothermia often take off their clothes and shoes, thinking they are too hot. This irrational behavior is one of the last signs before losing consciousness." However, this did not explain how Kayla ended up so far from the pass, in a ravine that required technical descent. Mountaineer Robert Hillman, who advised the investigation, suggested, "Perhaps she found a route that we don't know about. There are natural passages and crevasses in the mountains that are not marked on maps. In a state of panic or disorientation, a person may descend a path that seems passable but turns out to be a trap. Easy to descend but impossible to climb back up." Brandon was not found. The search operation was resumed with redoubled intensity after Kayla's body was discovered. The reasoning was simple. If Kayla ended up in the ravine, Brandon might also be somewhere nearby. Climbers combed through all the crevasses, caves, and hard-to-reach areas within a 3-mile radius of the discovery site. 2 more weeks of intensive searching. Nothing. The family organized a private search expedition. Robert Adams hired a professional search and rescue company specializing in mountain operations. A team of 12 experienced climbers spent another month checking every square foot within a 5-mile radius of Forester Pass. They used drones with cameras, professional thermal imaging equipment, and specially trained dogs. There were no results. By November, snow had covered the high mountain areas of the Sierra Nevada. Further searches were impossible until spring. The Adams family hoped that new clues would emerge after the snow melted. In the spring of 2002, the search resumed. Groups of volunteers, coordinated by park rangers, combed the area again. Brandon was not found. Years passed. The Brandon Adams case remained open. Every summer, groups of tourists passing through Forester Pass received information leaflets with a photo of Brandon and a request to report any findings, clothing, equipment, or any traces of a person. Rangers periodically checked remote areas. Nothing. Mary Adams, Brandon's mother, devoted the rest of her life to searching for her son.
Okay, guys. I'm gonna bring us back so we can start talking about that one. Brandon was never found. His wife obviously was found. I'm gonna start with Ms.Demeanor since she's sitting next to me, and then we can go to Bia, Dr. Hine, and Loren and Jules. Ms.Demeanor, what did you think of that story? What were kind of your takeaways there?
Well, my mind immediately is trying to solve the puzzle. So I do believe that she took her shoes and socks off because of hypothermia. I know that's super common.
Yep.
And I also think that it's possible one of them that there was maybe some sort of emergency and they've separated for some reason, and one of them, likely her, may have gone to get assistance for him, but then I don't know what happened to him.
Well,
I'm really good at these puzzles.
Well, just to make sure that you're tracking, they can't figure out how she would have made it from where her boots were found to that area and not have the abrasions on her feet, then be able to descend without any technical climbing equipment. So that's part of this is like you have to pay very close, because that's what they can't explain.
Right.
How did you get from here to here? Your feet are not damaged, right? And then how were you able to descend a rock wall with no climbing equipment? Because that was in their backpack.
Right.
There you go. Bia, take it away. It's crazy. I mean, this is why these things are so nutty. So, Bia, go ahead, please.
Did they give us a cause of death for her? I don't
Hypothermia.
Oh, so it was hypothermia. Okay.
And dehydration.
Okay.
See, I did pay attention, DJ.
No,
did.
I know. Sometimes, though, what Dave says, and I think Simeon will back me up, when these forensic pathologists, these coroners, when they don't know what happened, they're going to say something that they think the public is going to buy.
Right.
Because they can't explain how she got from where the backpacks were to a rock wall without ropes and climbing gear and shoes and belay equipment and, the carabiners and the whole 9 yards. So they're going to say something that they think people, it's kind of like what you deal with in true crime. You see this all the time. Oh, Sandra Birchmore, suicide. Of course they were probably strong-armed into that, but there's other things. Bia, did you finish?
I only asked one question so I could continue. So anyways, so I think she was probably taken and he went to get help is what I think.
Okay. Dr. Hine.
Yeah, no, this is a new case. I've studied many of these cases. It's a new one for me. It has all those hallmarks of how did the person go these distances. That especially happens with children who get lost, and yet they seem to end up, 10 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how did they go all that distance, by themselves? It doesn't seem, physically possible unless something lifted them up. So, no, it's a very fascinating case. I don't have any particular ideas about what happened, but it's another one.
When you look, though, Dr. Hine, at Missing 411, the UFO Connection, Dave's movie, they say that certain times when someone is abducted by a UFO, and now also they didn't find Brandon, so that they didn't find Brandon at all. But sometimes when people are abducted by UFOs, where they're dropped off is not always in the best place. You have Travis Walton, who was obviously dropped off somewhere where he could walk to a phone and call for help. But you had that gentleman in Idaho that was dumped on the side of a hill, and then his wife and the sheriff were able to find him. But you have other people that are dumped off in these weird places, and sometimes they don't survive. And maybe because whomever these intelligences are that are abducting them don't understand. Yeah, you need to land. You need to let them walk down the little ramp, and and you can't just like airdrop them onto the side of a mountain and be like, oh, this looks good. No, I'm sorry, Lord Katie, go ahead.
So my mind automatically, it stuck with the body after death, and brought me back to like the whole Karen Reed trial. Like the science wouldn't lie. That's, if she were to have fallen, there would have been evidence on her body and all of that. How did she get there? Her feet would have had bruising. It would have had all kinds of abrasions on it and stuff. So that right there is very, very interesting. And yes, and there was it seems like they searched for forever afterwards for him. So he just disappeared completely, which is wild.
Yeah, and so that kind of leads me down the abduction route, because they have never found any of his anything other than the backpacks. They didn't find his shoes, his clothing, certain types of belts that people wear in the outdoors could last 50 years. in the outdoors. There are certain types of equipment. Boots would Gore-Tex. There's actually a Bigfoot. Man, I hate to tell this one because it kind of makes me a little bit sad. But there was a guy out in Montana. I don't know if Sim is out there now. That was solo hunting. He was a doctor, and he took off of the game trail that he was on. He saw another smaller trail off the game trail, and there was a bush, a big bush that he needed to crawl under. When he crawled under there, he found basically a killing field. He found hundreds and hundreds of bones, of animal bones, and it was clear that something was there that had consumed all of these animals and put the bones there. In that, he found a torso of a human, and it had a Gore-Tex. This human had the head was removed, the legs were removed, but it had a Gore-Tex jacket on him. And inside that Gore-Tex jacket was like some sort of a business card or something. And he took that to police, and he said, "Hey, let me know what you find." He beat feet out of there, back to his truck, and then went and gave that business card to sheriffs. But yeah, human torso inside because a Gore-Tex jacket could last years if it's a good quality Gore-Tex jacket out in the wild. So just that seemed to have been a Bigfoot thing. So they're not always friendly. And one thing Thomas T is pointing out here to one of our other members here was asking NR. Yes, the Patterson Gimlin film was a female, very clear depiction of mammary glands on that creature from 1967. Jules, could you give your thoughts on that case? Jules.
Okay, can you hear me out?
Yes, ma'am.
I've been thinking in relationship to the paranormal, because the normal explanations don't satisfy. I mean, she obviously did not traverse that area, or it would have shown on her body, especially her feet. Now, if you're thinking Bigfoot may have done it, could have been carrying her. They could make people take their shoes off because they never wear shoes now, do they? It could be like an offense to their religious beliefs or something to have on shoes, for all we know. And then they left her where they left her because they must have had a reason. They didn't want her anymore. You know, maybe she fought harder than the guy and they carried him off and left her there. You know, if you're thinking it's Bigfoot, if you're thinking it's UFOs, well, they can do just about anything. You really can't rule anything out. Levitation and going through stuff, you know, they could deposit her wherever the heck they wanted. And, you know, without any harm to her. And then you have things like ball light, like sim studies, and ball lightning's been known to pick things up and put them places. What if they were out in the canyon and ball lightning came up and decided to take one away and drop one off in a strange place? You know, it's unpredictable too. So there's lots of strange things that have science or experiences behind it that you could say, yeah, that would explain that. But the thing is, we just don't know which one it is, or even if it's true. And the sad part is we may never know.
Yeah, the thing with the Bigfoot is that it also would need climbing gear to traverse certain types of terrain. I mean, I have not seen photos of this area, but if a human needs climbing ropes to get down something, then a Bigfoot also might. So
I disagree. I mean, you got
go ahead.
going in the field, it's disappearing. We don't know what their abilities are. You know, they may not.
You're right. You're right. We really don't. We don't. They certainly Bigfoots. I mean, between the three of us here, they have some ability between glowing eyes that glow. So there's eye shine where you guys, everybody here has driven down a rural country road and seen a raccoon at the side of the road or a deer or
Deer
even a dog,
shining.
and you can see the eye shine. What people have seen in hundreds, if not thousands, of Bigfoot sightings where you're not pointing a light and the eyes are just glowing. How that happens, we can't explain. And one thing I wanted to mention to Ms.Demeanor about what Sim was talking about earlier about changing and becoming sort of transparent. There was a woman we lost a couple years ago, a Bigfoot researcher named Barb Shoop, and she has a video that was in that movie, Bigfoot, A Flash of Beauty. And you can see she's got her camera there, and like a juvenile Bigfoot sticking its head out from behind a tree and then turning and running the other direction. What we see, what she saw, it looked black, but what we see on camera, it looks like it literally turned like Predator and looked clear. As soon as it ran the other direction, it looked like you're looking at Predator. So the film looked different than what Barb saw. So there's a lot of mystery around these creatures. There's so much more that we don't know, and we know almost nothing other than that they walk. They're incredibly fast. They're incredibly strong. They're incredibly smart, and that they're omnivores. And we don't know a lot and they have different personalities. Sims talked about some of them will hurt people. Some of them, I have heard hundreds of these where they look at somebody and they turn around and walk away. Kids?
Well, I agree with Jules about we don't know what they're capable of. And so I can't discount the fact that she could end up there by one of them taking her there. Mostly because I think of a mountain goat, and mountain goats have, their feet are different. They have like suction cup pads that allow them to manage the terrain as easily as they do. So we don't know if they have some sort of physical ability that would allow them to, Spider-Man crawl or something.
You are correct.
I know that sounds ridiculous, but we don't know.
You are correct. I'll tell you guys after this next one about Kaimichi Bigfoot in Oklahoma, David Milburn talking about a sheriff's deputy and an off-duty town police officer in Oklahoma that were doing target practice when a Bigfoot low crawled up to their site. These guys beat feet out of there so fast, and they didn't pack up. They had to have someone else go back and get their camping equipment. And when they took David Milbank there to the site, one of them wouldn't even go to the site. The second one, that was the sheriff's deputy, drove him out there, and he said, "I ain't getting out of the car." It was right over there where we were camping. David Milbank said, "No problem." He took his camping gear and stayed the night there. So we'll talk about that one a little bit later. But let's get to this next one, and then there's a child one if we can get to it. But let's get to this one. See what you guys think. All right, here we go. This is the work of X Zone Missing. I put his icon up in the right corner of your screen. X Zone Missing. Excellent.
Earned. Not all children who get lost in the mountains come home. The July morning of 2007 was clear and promising. Professor Martin Schultz of Heidelberg University led a group of 8 geology students to the summit of Mount Whitney, the highest point in the continental United States, rising 14,505 feet above sea level. Schultz, 63, was one of Europe's leading experts on plate tectonics and volcanic rocks, the author of 7 books and more than 200 scientific articles. He had come to California for the University of California's summer geology program to share his knowledge with a younger generation of researchers. This trip was not a tourist outing, but a field research project. Schultz planned to collect granite samples from various elevations to analyze the geological history of the Sierra Nevadas formation. His students, young people aged 20 to 24 from the universities of California and Nevada, were excited about the opportunity to work with such a renowned scientist. Among them were Jason Turner, a graduate student from Berkeley, Emily Chen, a senior from Stanford, Michael Rodriguez from the University of California, Los Angeles, and 5 other young geologists. The group began their ascent from the trailhead at Whitney Portal Lake at 4 in the morning to avoid the afternoon thunderstorms that often develop at high altitudes. Schultz was in excellent physical shape for his age. He regularly climbed in the Alps. He considered fieldwork an integral part of geology. Each carried a backpack with food, water, warm clothing, and scientific equipment. Schultz also had his favorite geological hammer, a tool he had used for 30 years, a gift from his research supervisor. The climb went smoothly. The group made regular stops during which the professor explained the geological features of the surrounding rocks, demonstrated how to determine the age of formations, and described the processes that created these majestic mountains millions of years ago. The students wrote down his words, photographed samples, and asked questions. Schultz was in his element, a passionate teacher sharing decades of accumulated knowledge. By noon, the group had reached an altitude of approximately 13,600 feet, walking along a narrow rocky ridge with steep slopes on both sides. Visibility was excellent. You could see for miles in all directions. The trail here was well marked but narrow, only 2 or 3 feet wide in places, with sheer drops on both sides. Schultz walked at the rear of the group, as he usually did on such expeditions. He liked to stop, examine rocks, and take samples without delaying the others. Jason Turner, as the senior student, led the group ahead. The professor lagged behind by about 165 feet, stopping periodically to study fascinating geological formations. The students saw him behind them, bent over the rock outcrop, hammering. Around noon on the second day, something happened that would turn this scientific expedition into a tragedy. The students walking ahead heard a sound, not quite a scream, more like a short exclamation of surprise or alarm. They turned around. Schultz was nowhere to be seen behind the rock ledge. Jason shouted, "Professor Schultz, are you okay?" Silence, only the wind and the echo of his own voice. The group immediately ran back along the trail. After running about 70 yards, they reached the spot where they had last seen the professor. His geological hammer lay on the trail. His backpack stood nearby, neatly placed against a rock. But Schultz himself was gone. The students began shouting his name and searching the surrounding area. To the right of the trail, the slope descended several hundred feet, steep but not sheer, covered with rocks and sparse vegetation. To the left was an almost vertical rock wall. Emily Chen carefully climbed down a few yards down the slope, holding onto rocks, hoping to see the professor below, perhaps fallen and injured. Nothing. Michael Rodriguez checked the trail ahead and behind. Possibly Schultz had somehow passed them or fallen even further behind. Nothing. Panic began to set in. Jason made a decision. 2 students would stay put and continue searching the immediate vicinity. At the same time, the rest would go for help. Jason and Emily stayed behind, continuing to search the area and call out loudly for the professor. The other 6 began a rapid descent to the ranger station. By 6 o'clock in the evening, the Sequoia National Park Rangers arrived on the scene. The captain of the search party organized a systematic search of the area within a half-mile radius of the spot where the hammer and backpack had been found. Megaphones and whistles were used. As darkness fell, powerful searchlights were brought in. The temperature at this altitude dropped to 20 degrees Fahrenheit at night. Without the warm clothes that remained in the backpack, the chances of survival were limited. In the morning, the search operation was expanded. More than 60 people, rangers, volunteers, climbers, combed the slopes of Mount Whitney. A helicopter flew over the area. Dogs tried to pick up the scent, but on a rocky trail at such an altitude, scent trails are practically impossible to detect. All possible places where a person could have fallen or gone were checked. Caves, crevices, areas hidden behind boulders. The students were questioned repeatedly. They all told the same story. They heard a short sound, turned around, saw that the professor was not visible around the bend in the trail, ran back, and found only his equipment. No one saw what happened. No one heard the sounds of a fall, the rumble of stones, the impact on the rocks. Jason described the last moment he saw Schultz. He was standing, leaning over the rock outcrop, working with a hammer. He looked completely normal. We turned away and continued walking. Maybe 2 minutes passed. Then we heard the sound. Schultz's relatives in Germany were notified. His wife Ingrid and his adult daughter Katerina flew to California 3 days later. Ingrid, herself a chemistry professor, tried to remain calm, but it was clear that she was on the verge of a breakdown. Martin knew the mountains. He is careful, attentive. He couldn't just fall. Something happened, she repeated. The search continued for 5 days. The area within a 3-mile radius of the point of disappearance was thoroughly combed. Climbing teams descended all the steep slopes, checking places where he might have fallen. Nothing. Professor Martin Schultz seemed to have vanished into thin air. Then, on the 6th day, a group of tourists from Los Angeles climbing Mount Whitney made a strange discovery. At an altitude of about 14,200 feet, 600 feet above the point where Schultz disappeared, almost at the very summit, a jacket was lying among the rocks. One of the tourists, Rachel Stevens, a nurse, noticed the bright orange jacket and picked it up. The find was immediately reported to the rangers. The students identified the jacket as the professor's. They had seen him put it on that morning before the climb began. Schultz wore a light windbreaker over his t-shirt. The search focused on the area around the summit. Teams methodically checked every area within a mile of where the jacket was found. Nothing else was found. No other clothing, no body, no signs of human presence. How could Professor Schultz have ended up 600 feet above the place where he disappeared? He was walking with the group up the mountain, but he was lagging behind rather than walking ahead. The students did not see him overtake them. There is only one trail in this area. There are no detours. To climb from an altitude of 13,600 feet to 14,200 feet, one must pass by the spot where Jason and Emily, the students, remained at the search site. The investigation team interviewed all the hikers who were on the mountain that day. Several groups climbed to the summit via the same route. No one saw a lone elderly man in an orange jacket walking without a backpack or equipment. At such an altitude, a hiker without a backpack would attract attention. It is unsafe and unusual. Mountain climbing experts were puzzled. One of them, Douglas Craig, a climber with 40 years of experience, explained, "The climb from 13,600 to 14,200 feet is about 1.5 to 2 hours of active climbing for a trained person. But that's on the trail, with stops, with normal equipment." Professor Schultz left his backpack below. He had no water, no food, no warm clothes. Why would he climb higher, leaving all his equipment behind? Some suggested a medical incident, a heart attack, a stroke, sudden disorientation. But then how did his jacket end up so high up? Perhaps Schultz felt ill and in a confused state of mind began to move without realizing what he was doing, climbing upward instead of descending to seek help. But even in such a state, a 600-foot climb up a steep trail is a considerable physical effort.
Heavy.
The theory that someone had carried the jacket upstairs was considered, but seemed unlikely. Why would anyone do that? And where was the professor's body? The search continued for another 2 weeks, but to no avail. Schultz's family returned to Germany, devastated. Heidelberg University held a memorial service in honor of the distinguished scholar. His students, who were with him that day, carried the burden of guilt and confusion. "We should have stayed together. We shouldn't have let him fall behind," Jason Turner said at the service. The case of Professor Martin Schultz remains open. Every summer, rangers are instructed to pay attention to any finds on the slopes of Mount Whitney: clothing, equipment, remains. Sometimes the mountains return their missing persons years later, when melting snow or landslides expose what was hidden. Schultz's geological hammer and backpack were returned to his family. Ingrid donated the hammer to the Heidelberg University Museum with a plaque that reads, "The tool of Professor Martin Schultz, researcher-teacher, a man who loved the mountains and gave his life to them." Professor Schultz's story reminds us that mountains do not distinguish between the experienced and the inexperienced, between the young and the old, between tourists and scientists. They exist according to their own laws, indifferent to human plans and intentions. What happened to Martin Schultz on that July day? Why was his jacket found at an altitude he could not have physically reached in that time? These questions remain unanswered, another mystery that Sierra Nevada keeps in its ancient rocks. And while the answers remain hidden in the granite cliffs, we can only guess what happened in those fateful moments and continue to search for the truth. That's all, friends. Give it a thumbs up if you found it interesting. Write your opinion.
All right, guys. Wow. So, Ms.Demeanor, what happened to Professor Schultz?
Oh, he was abducted. And mostly the reason I say that is because 600 feet, like Anybody that has known me for any period of time, I am a football geek. And so I think of things in football terms, whether it's coaching teams or a football field. And in my mind, I'm thinking 600 feet is 2 football fields. I don't see someone doing that and not there being nothing left and no one stumbled upon him. No. He was beamed up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at 7,250 feet here, and that's double where I live. And I think hiking here a couple hundred feet in ascent is really difficult on your cardio. So for him to go 600 feet, it would have been twice as difficult. Boston Bia, what do you think about this case, buddy?
Buddy, I think he was abducted. Definitely. There's no other explanation. He was 63 years old and he would not have been able to go that distance. The fact that they left behind a coat is kind of strange. And obviously I feel bad for the students who feel that guilt of, letting him fall behind. So I do, feel bad for them.
This should strike with Sim right here. I live in Idaho. There's been many missing 411 cases covered by David. I don't want to go out in the wild anymore. Yeah, man, it does scare you. Dr. Heino, what is your assessment of what your befell your academic colleague here?
Yeah, there are other cases like this where the rest of the group heard a scream or other hikers heard a scream. They had passed a person, heard a scream, person disappears. Some cases they've seen Bigfoot tracks just coincidentally just 20 minutes before in snow. And then they later found the person, as a missing persons. They had passed them. It just reminded me of that type of case where it doesn't, there was a case like this in Alabama that Paulides documented of line workers where a guy just 100 feet behind disappears in this way. They find his change and his boots and things. Mm-hmm. And it's inconceivable that any normal creature could do such a thing without being seen, detected, heard. So yeah, my mind goes off in the direction of some sort of cryptid. And keep in mind, there's more than Bigfoot out there. That's just one of many denizens of the unknown that interact with people in different ways. I should say that there are many cases of Bigfoot rescuing people too. We don't want to present it. You can read about this with children, hikers, people being carried down to cabins, cars being put back on the road. That one happened right near Twin Falls, by the way. There are many cases where they do rescue people from situations where they wouldn't have survived, pulling them out of freezing cold waters in Glacier National Park, kids, and especially kids. And sometimes they seem to ask for help from people. If one of their infants is injured, they seem to know who has veterinary experience and so forth. So it's such a mixed picture. It's very hard to generalize. But this particular case, you see these patterns and it fits that type of pattern. They're not that far from the group, a minute or 2 minutes behind, and you hear that shriek, a sound. There's sometimes where you don't hear the sound of the person, you hear that weird metal clanging sound.
Yes, they heard that, right? They heard that weird, like the guy in Missing 411, The Hunted, Tom Messick.
Yeah,
they heard
the
that
door
weird sound.
slamming. Some people have described it as a door grating on concrete, but the metallic ring, that is interesting that you find that in these cases, even in that case of Thomas Groves and Land Between the Lakes.
I don't know that one.
Those two those two sheriff deputies that encountered the Bigfoot Dogman group right before it happened, they heard a metal clanging sound.
Wow.
So there do seem to be these very interesting patterns, and one of them is a very brief shout, shriek, the way any of us would react to something that seems extremely startling, an involuntary shouting. It's built into us to get help from our comrades, and that seems what this is. But I have to say, I have to do another interview in a few minutes, so
Yes,
I'm going to have to leave. But we will catch you again. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Sim. Appreciate it. It's great having
Great
you. Dr.
meeting you.
Simeon,
Great.
hi, and everybody.
And I'll watch the rest of this because these are so fascinating. In case I will watch the rest of this.
Thank you for your time, sir. It's
Okay,
great
take
to have
care,
you.
guys. Bye.
Bye-bye. There's one other thing I wanted to mention about this that sort of steers away from Bigfoot. And before I do that, there was a boy in North Carolina, and I can find this. I mean, if you just Google North Carolina boy rescued by Bigfoot, and I believe he was about 3 years old. And when he was returned back near his parents' home, which is where he went missing out of the backyard into the woods, he said, I slept with the bear. The bear kept me warm, that kind of thing, because it was quite cold weather. And we all know that a bear is not going to keep a little kid warm. It's going to eat that kid. But that the authorities had to tell the story, that the most believable story that they could. But everybody that I've talked to believes that most certainly that kid was out in the woods. He was calling for his mommy, and a Bigfoot looked after him and dropped him off within, I think, 200 yards of his home or something like that, and then took off. So let's see. We got to get to Miss Loren Katie, and we got to get to Jules about the story about Professor Schultz.
Yeah, that's wild. This is all very new to me. So I'm taking it in, and it's crazy. I mean, he couldn't have. I agree with Bia. Like, he's an older man, and then he's not going up that high. So that is wild, and the fact that it happened in front of really so many people is very interesting, and I just kind of blown away by this one.
And above the thing I meant to say, Loren, that I forgot to mention a minute ago when I got into the kid's story, above the timberline. So when you're above the timberline, the areas to hide, like that a creature like that would hide, like a Bigfoot, they typically are not in those areas. Why? Because you're expending an awful lot of energy to get up there for what? The food sources and the water sources are down below. So they tend to stay in the timberline and near where there is a fresh water source. And a previous guest that we had on the show, who I wanted to be on tonight, named Matt Knapp of Bigfoot Crossroad, he showed me, he's made a whole map that I used even when I was down in Florida. There was shows where waterways come together, there's fresh water, and then there's certain types of food sources. So there's deer, and everything is going and feeding off of that fresh running water. Not that blackish water that you'll see also in Northwest Florida, but that water where it's a running stream. And he said, this is where you want to go and look for Bigfoot, not in places where there's no fresh water. Because how the hell far does anything that doesn't, like us, have a Camelback or a canteen want to travel from fresh water? You just don't want to do that. You don't want to be 10 miles away or 12 miles away from fresh water, right? That doesn't make sense. Anyway, Jules, above the timberline, it was 14,200 feet. They heard that strange metallic noise, and that's the only thing that they heard before Professor Schultz went missing.
Yeah, I would have to go with either stepped into a portal of some sort, and he was it's like the land of the Fae. You can wander around in the land of the Fae for a while, and they'll spit you out if you don't eat or drink anything. So, maybe he was just in an alternate reality, and that's how he got by them without them seeing him. Or any number of the paranormal, explanations could fit. It could have been a craft that was cloaked and just snagged him and then dropped his jacket off. Who knows? It's Grant Cameron, a legendary ufologist type guy, says it's the wow factor. They do something so bizarre so that you've got to look at it and say, wow. and it makes you think, and it's to change your perceptions, to know that this reality is not the reality everyone says it is. There's so much more to it. And so they like give you a woo slap across the head and hit you with something completely bizarre and impossible, just to make you pay attention, and so there's always something so crazy about it, and it's like built right in.
Yeah.
So
it's baked into the way the UFOs do things. And I encourage everybody in the panel to go to, I think it's on Tubi. It's on Tubi for free, and it's called Missing 411, The UFO Connection. And the brilliant author, David Paulides, former detective from San Jose Police Department, worked on the Polyclass case. If you guys remember Polyclass, Dave was the lead detective for San Jose Police on the Polyclass case, worked along with the FBI, and now he does this Missing 411 and has these profile points that let me see if I can show you here.
I did also have another thought on that, though.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
wonder
Go ahead.
if he was being lifted up in some way and he dropped that jacket on purpose.
It could be. It could be.
Because he was,
everything's on
yeah,
the table except for
like,
he ran away, because
right.
you ain't going to get very far without food, water, and proper clothing, and then they find your body.
Right.
And when they don't, in this next one, you're going to hear. If you guys are okay, I'm going to do one more. It's a child one, and I'm going to do one more. Is that okay with everybody here? Yeah. Okay. Let's do
good.
this. Okay. Let's do this one and see how you guys like this.
Unanswered. Nature does not explain. It simply exists. Ancient, indifferent, unpredictable.
Thank you, X-Zone Missing. He's excellent. Or she. Because this is AI that's reading this.
The Porter family from Tacoma, Washington, arrived at Mount Rainier in the second half of August 2018. Parents David and Sarah Porter and their 3 children planned to spend the weekend camping near Paradise Glacier, a picturesque spot at 6,800 feet. It was a family ritual. Every summer they spent a few days in the mountains, introducing their children to nature and camping. Their eldest son, Ethan, was 9, their middle son, Benjamin, was 6, and their youngest daughter, Emily, was 4.
9, 6, and 4.
The weather was perfect, about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, clear skies, excellent visibility. The family set up camp in an open alpine meadow, where the low grass and lack of trees allowed them to see for more than a mile in all directions. David pitched the tent, while Sarah prepared dinner on the camp stove. Ethan and Benjamin played nearby, running around the meadow and exploring boulders. Emily helped her mother. Around 6 in the evening, Ethan sat down to tie his shoelace, which had come undone. According to him, he was distracted for literally half a minute. When he looked up, Benjamin was not there. Ethan looked around. His brother had disappeared. The boy ran to his parents, shouting, "Where's Ben? I can't see Ben!" David and Sarah immediately rushed to search the area. Panic grew with every passing second. There was nowhere to hide in the open meadow. Visibility was perfect. But Benjamin was nowhere to be found. The family began shouting the boy's name and searching every inch of the camp. Neighboring tourists who had pitched their tents a few hundred feet away heard the cries and joined the search. 10 adults combed the area, checked boulders, and looked into every crevice. Nothing. Benjamin seemed to have vanished into thin air. David made his way to the ranger station 2 miles away and raised the alarm. By 8 p.m., a team of 6 Mount Rainier National Park rangers and 2 dog handlers with German Shepherd search dogs were on the scene. The dogs were given Benjamin's t-shirt to sniff. The animals picked up the scent and led the group up the slope. The trail led across an alpine meadow toward large granite boulders about 300 feet from the camp, closer to the Paradise Glacier. The dogs followed the trail confidently, sniffing the ground. But when they reached the boulders, both shepherds suddenly stopped. They began circling in place, whining and backing away. Dog handler Robert Hendrickson, who had worked with these dogs for 7 years, tried to redirect them, but the animals categorically refused to continue. "I've never seen anything like this," he told search team Captain Stephen Morales. Usually a dog either follows the trail to the end or gradually loses it. Here it's as if the trail just disappears into thin air. The next day, 2 more dogs were brought in from a neighboring county. The result was the same. Both picked up the trail to the boulders, then refused to go any further. Captain Morales suggested that the boy might have crossed a rocky area or a stream where the scent would not linger. Still, there was no water or particularly rocky terrain nearby that could account for the trail's loss. By nightfall, the temperature had dropped sharply to 28 degrees Fahrenheit, well below freezing. Snow began to fall, even though the Weather Service had not forecast precipitation. A 6-year-old child, dressed in a t-shirt and shorts, could not survive for long in such conditions. Rangers worked through the night with powerful flashlights and thermal imaging equipment, checking every area within a 2-mile radius. In the morning, the search operation was expanded to a scale rarely seen even in a national park. More than 300 volunteers, rangers, search and rescue teams from 5 counties, volunteers, and a National Guard unit combed the area. Helicopters with thermal imaging cameras and drones were used, and climbing teams checked hard-to-reach areas near glaciers. Local media covered the story, and hundreds of people came every day to help with the search. Benjamin's parents stayed at the search site. Sarah cried, hugging her younger children. David joined every search group, refusing to rest. "My son is out there somewhere. We have to find him. He couldn't just disappear," he repeated over and over. Friends and relatives organized a fundraiser, offering a $20,000 reward for information leading to the boy's whereabouts. Days turned into a week, then 2. The search continued for 12 days without interruption, but to no avail. Captain Morales said at a press conference, "We have searched every square foot within a 5-mile radius. We have used all available technology and resources. Unfortunately, Benjamin has not been found. We are not giving up the search, but we are switching to patrol mode." The chances of finding the child alive after so many days in the mountains in low temperatures were virtually 0. 16 days after his disappearance, early in the morning, a group of hunters, a father and his 2 adult sons from Yakima, were climbing a remote route at an altitude of 9,400 feet, almost 2,500 feet above the Porter family's camp. It was a technically challenging section requiring passage across 2 glaciers and a rocky ridge. The route was not intended for tourists. Only experienced climbers with complete equipment could ascend it. Senior hunter Mark Jenkins noticed something bright near a large boulder. As he got closer, he was astonished to see a little boy sitting on the ground, leaning against the rock. The child was wearing the same t-shirt and shorts, but
Just real quickly, guys or gals, 16 days after he went missing with a t-shirt and shorts in that weather. 16 days.
no shoes. He seemed semi-conscious but alive. Mark immediately called the rescue service, and his sons covered the boy with their jackets. A helicopter arrived 40 minutes later and took Benjamin to Harborview Hospital in Seattle. A medical examination revealed severe exhaustion. The boy had lost about 8 pounds. He was dehydrated and had multiple minor abrasions on his arms and legs. The condition of his feet was surprising. There was virtually no severe damage, only minor scratches and scrapes. Dr. Elizabeth Collins, the pediatrician who examined the boy, later said, "If a child had crossed 2 glaciers and climbed 2,500 feet barefoot, his feet would be in terrible condition, cuts, frostbite, deep wounds. Here we see minimal damage." The parents arrived at the hospital 3 hours later. The reunion was emotional. Sarah cried incessantly as she hugged her son. David stood nearby, holding his wife's shoulder, unable to speak. Benjamin recognized his parents and hugged them, but he was very lethargic and couldn't really explain what had happened. The next day, when the boy's condition had stabilized, child psychologist Jennifer Thomas had a cautious conversation with Benjamin in the presence of his parents. The child said, "I was playing with Ethan. Then I saw a big hairy man behind the rocks. He was waving at me. He was very tall. I went to look. Then I slept for a long, long time. Then I woke up on the rocks." His parents tried to ask for more details, but Benjamin couldn't or wouldn't add any more. The psychologist explained to the Porters that children in extreme situations often create protective fantasies to cope with stress and fear. The image of a big man could have been his child's mind's way of explaining what happened. Perhaps he saw a shadow, a tree, a boulder, something that frightened him or caught his attention. In a state of hypothermia and stress, perception is distorted. Detective Carol Evans of the Pierce County Sheriff's Office conducted the investigation. How could a 6-year-old child climb 2,500 feet up rugged mountain terrain, cross glaciers, and traverse rocky areas? Expert climbers who consulted on the investigation stated that it was physically impossible for a child of that age to do so without adult assistance. Dr. Michael Ryan, a specialist in child psychology and trauma, offered an explanation. In extreme situations, the human body is capable of incredible things. Adrenaline, survival instinct, and panic can cause a child to climb, crawl, and move with strength and perseverance that would be impossible under normal circumstances. Children are more flexible and lighter, and can squeeze through narrow spaces. Perhaps Benjamin found a route he could climb, moving instinctively. The theory that someone kidnapped or carried the boy was investigated and rejected. At an altitude of 9,400 feet, there were no trails that an adult could have taken with a child. The cameras at the park entrances did not capture any suspicious individuals. All tourists who were in the area on the day of the disappearance were interviewed and checked. How did a 6-year-old boy survive 16 days in the mountains at sub-zero temperatures? How did he climb to a height that would be inaccessible without mountaineering equipment? Medicine and science offer rational explanations: survival instinct, childlike flexibility, luck. But for the Porter family and many who followed the story, what happened remains an inexplicable miracle. Benjamin returned. Not all children who get lost in the mountains come home.
All right, team. One thing I want to show you are Dave Paulides profile points. And if you can't read this, I'll read it to you. But this is what these are missing 411 profile points. There's geographical clusters. Disappearances are concentrated in specific areas, often national parks, rather than being evenly distributed. There's a weather change that's associated. The weather often turns bad around the time of the disappearance or the search. Previously searched areas. Victims are frequently found in areas that have been thoroughly searched, sometimes even on the trail where the team shows up every morning to start searching. So they know that they traversed that area. Missing items. Victims are often missing shoes, clothes, or other personal equipment. Time of day. Many disappearances happen in the late afternoon, often around 4 p.m. Canines. Inability to track. Search and rescue dogs are unable to pick up a scent at the scene. Proximity to water or granite. The missing person is often found in or near a body of water in an area with a lot of boulders or granite. Victim characteristics. The person is missing may have a disability or underlying medical issue. Distance. The distance traveled by some of the missing people is considered unrealistic for a person to have covered. Lack of memory. So you can see a lot of the profile points here fit this young man, except for weather. There was no significant weather events surrounding it. Lack of memory. Victims who are found alive often have no memory of how they got lost. Cause of death. Coroners are frequently unable to determine a cause of death even after autopsy. That is awesome. Okay, team. With that, I just wanted to arm you with that. Ms.Demeanor, please take it away, ma'am.
Well, there's absolutely, positively no way a child can survive on their own for 16 days. That's 2.5 weeks. It's not plausible. That's if the individual stays in the exact same location. So I think exploring the option of this child just is some genius in survival is completely implausible. I also know from my own experience that traumatic events lead to a lack of memory. And so it's possible that he was cared for by a group of whatevers that took care of him until it was finally possible for him to be found by appropriate rescue personnel. So, excuse me. So that's kind of my take on this one. The temperatures and food and water, yes, I realized that he'd lost weight and that, but no, you're not going to convince me that a child can survive for 2.5 weeks.
Well put. Well done. Boston Bia.
Well, I kind of had a thought. I kind of developed a theory as I was watching this. So look at the difference between when they abducted the doctor versus a child. So then I started thinking, like, what's the differences? Obviously, there's more information to be learned from the doctor, whereas maybe these higher beings are, wanting to just educate themselves. And a child has had such a short life that potentially that's why they're returned, because there's not a lot of information to gather. So that's what I kind of went. And then I also thought, like, children are very curious that, they would, especially little boys running off in the woods. Like, the fact that he lost weight is the only thing that and I get the, where he was found. The fact that he lost weight, that he also wasn't being cared for, because in order for him to lose 8 pounds, that means that whatever had him was not taking care of him. So could he have potentially just explored and somehow just explored? But then that other part of me is like, well, he could have also been abducted to gather info and then return, because that info is so limited. So that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing for me, like, kind of like what Ms.Demeanor was saying, no hat, no gloves, no jacket, no shoes. I don't think you could survive that long without out and being exposed. And they said it was sub-freezing. I don't know if they said sub-freezing or sub-zero. It might have been
Sub-freezing. It was like in the 24 degrees is what I remember them saying.
Yeah.
Loren, Katie, can you investigate this one and talk to this boy? What the hell happened?
I got nothing for you on this one, TJ. He's getting like more. I mean, this is wild, and I'm with Ms.Demeanor. This is. I mean, it's not physically possible. I don't think that he could have survived. Wow, like that's incredible. And first of all, the whole time I'm like, I hope this kid is alive. So
yes,
I'm really
thank God.
if he's okay, because I was like, oh my goodness, what a story. And it's very possible, going along with Ms.Demeanor just like literally just summed that up so well, because the dramatic stuff, our brains and our bodies and stuff can block that out. So like, this one's crazy, but wow.
Yeah. What I was going to say, Jules, if you watch that original Missing 411 Before the Hunted, and this boy is still alive. He's from Oregon. I know it's going to make you think of McMinnville, but he's from Oregon. He was found. He was 3 years old. He was found. So Survivor man Les Stroud went with David Paulides, and he took off from the house, and he followed the route that they believed that the boy went and where he was found. This boy was found face down in the ice. Again, not sub-zero, but freezing temperatures, wearing like, he just had regular clothes on. He didn't have no hat, no gloves. He was playing around the barn. His mom said, come in for dinner. 2 brothers came in. The 3-year-old did not. He went 9 miles over fences. Les Stroud is like, I don't know how he did this in the dark, how you could do what he did. His clothing was torn. He had some scratches. His father was on the search team. This is 1962. This man's still alive. He has the clothing that he could show you that he was wearing. And his father found him face down in the ice alive. That has no memory of how he got there. No memory. and the terrain was very. Now it wasn't a mountain, but there was bushes and barbed wire fences and rocky terrain, and they don't understand how he did it. So, Jules, but what did you think of this young man, Benjamin? What are your thoughts on this one?
I think he told them what happened to him. I mean, being someone who saw a Sasquatch as a child, I believe he told them what happened to him. You know, he saw a Sasquatch, wasn't feeling any fear, just like I wasn't at first, and went over to have a look at it, and it snagged him. You know, it wanted to take him home. Probably tried to take care of him, and the boy couldn't thrive in their environment. So he gave him back. He's like, you know, I can't take care of him. He's going to die. Here, you have him back, you know? And I believe that's what happens, especially when they return him naked, but they're fine, you know? And it's like they try to get them to live with them, and they can't do it for some, you know, they don't want to eat whatever they're eating. They don't want, you know, I wouldn't have eaten probably while they were eating. I was so picky when I was little. And, you know, I can't see me eating much of anything, you know, that they picked out of the woods. And I would have lost weight too if he had decided to take me. But, and, you know, missing time is just all over the place with Bigfoot, with UFOs, with, you know, they have a way of affecting your mind to either wipe it or blur it, or, you know, they can manipulate. And I think he told the people exactly what happened to him, and that they were trying to keep him, and he was not thriving, and so they put him someplace he'd be found.
That sounds like a really good Bigfoot one, since he talked about the hairy man. It sounds like this could have actually been a Bigfoot one, and they might have been able to keep him warm and carry him. If you guys decide that you want to do some research after the show, if this happened in I want to say the early 1900s, there was a Dutch American named Albert Ostman, and he was abducted by Bigfoot in his sleeping bag, carried in his sleeping bag for miles, and basically ended up in a cave with the clan of Bigfoot. I believe this happened in Canada. And the way that he escaped was I think there was a Bigfoot family, essentially, and I think they had designs on the daughter and him and so forth. And what he did was he got the father to eat some of his snuff. And if you've ever, I don't know if any of you have ever taken Copenhagen and put it in your lip, it is very, very powerful. You do not want to swallow Copenhagen or you will throw up. And essentially Albert Ostman fed something. He was using this Copenhagen, and the little ones were kind of interested in it, and he fed it somehow to the father. And the father started to puke up and throw up, and he literally took his stuff and he beat feet out of there and ran. And apparently they didn't pursue him, or didn't pursue him far. And he documented this. He wrote an affidavit about this and the whole 9 yards. So whether it's true or not is, you know, anybody's guess, but that's what he wrote about. So Albert Ostman. So anyway,
I have a request.
Please. Yeah, go ahead.
Off the top of my head, because I'm old and I have some timers, so things don't always come into my brain at the time that I need it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But there is, and I think it's Netflix documentary about a woman who had been repeatedly abducted in New York City. Does this sound familiar?
Yeah,
okay.
Bud Hopkins. Yep. I can't remember her name, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember either. I actually think the documentary might be her name, is what the title is.
It led to the dissolution of Bud Hopkins' marriage. I remember that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Beautiful Italian woman, Italian American woman. Yep.
So I want to talk about that.
Sure.
And I'm inviting myself back.
There you go. We love that. Yes.
Yeah, it's been on my mind a lot because I don't really know how I feel about it. because there's a lot of controversy about whether what she said is true or not, or if there was some sort of almost like feeding each other, living in a vacuum. So I don't want to derail us tonight,
No,
but
this
it was
is great.
on my mind, and I'm like, I want to have a conversation about this.
Well, we can touch on it now. I mean, essentially, there are people that say that they saw a woman floating out of a window, and saw a craft and so forth. And there's been a couple of New York City events like that. There are some cops that I believe saw that. And then the wife of Bud Hopkins, who was the camera woman, became very skeptical and decided to debunk all of Bud Hopkins' cases. Jules, do you have any thoughts on that case? I'm sure you're familiar with it.
But Hopkins, oh man, his wife got really upset. I know that much. And
Yeah.
she was trying to debunk everything. And it's a very complicated case, but there were also some men who were witnesses to that too. Weren't they the ones that called
Yes.
Bob in? Was like some detective type guys or
Yes.
something. And so there's an awful lot of evidence, as per, spoken stories of people that is. And wasn't there even like some embassy person who saw her floating out the window? Is that the same one where he was on the bridge or something, and it was a guy from an embassy and he saw her floating?
Yes, there was. Yes, here's the woman right here.
It's called the Manhattan Alien Abduction.
Yeah, let's
There it is.
we can listen to it. Here we go. All right.
There were 23 witnesses.
I thought it was a movie. Special effects. I don't know why they're keeping it from the public, but we're not alone.
It would become the greatest abduction case ever seen.
But was there any evidence that this thing had actually happened?
That's the wife.
I moved to Manhattan to make a film about the alien abduction with my husband, Bud Hopkins.
The existence of an extraordinary phenomenon demands an extraordinary investigation.
Bud believed that she was very, very credible, and the audience loved her.
When people hear this, do they tell you you're nuts?
I'll tell you, Jay, I wish I was psychotic. At least there's treatment for that.
Linda is simply telling the truth. It's as easy as that.
She was pulling the wool over Bud's eyes.
How could she say the things she said after what my family and I went through?
What are you going from me?
One, we're going to end all this. Two, we're moving back now. You're not dying.
Three, you'd have to be a sociopath or a genius to commit a hoax like this.
To me, it began to seem almost too perfect.
After a while, I started to get paranoid. And not just about aliens.
Keep coming.
This is mind-blowing.
How could Linda possibly be orchestrating this enormous hoax if that's what it is? How do we know what's real?
It's not easy to believe, let's face it. But these aliens, if they want you, they're gonna get you.
I will continue to ask questions, Linda. And I won't stop doing that.
Bring it on.
All right.
Wife is big mad. Big mad.
Big time. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Do you want to go around the room with this one and then I'll give my comments, but go ahead, Ms.Demeanor. And
Oh, I just was fascinated with the documentary. And there are some things about her story that it can't be a hoax. It can't be made up. That's the part I'm struggling with when I have watched it. And I also think it's possible, if this has really happened to you, that you do have a certain amount of paranoia that may set in and you start to act like a not normal person because you have experienced a not normal experience. But I do know the ex-wife is big mad. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Boston Bia.
Well, I mean, just watching, I mean, I hadn't heard about this, but 23 witnesses, that kind of caught my attention because there's, more than just her saying this happened to her. Somebody's 23 is a lot. So that gives it a little bit more credibility to me. And I think our minds are such a powerful thing. And I think, just like when we were talking about the child, that our minds can just try to make sense of things and it knows instinctively to protect us in certain situations. And that's why we lose, memories or, it's very interesting. I'd love to I'm going to check it out for sure.
I didn't pick up on that, Loren, but Bia's doing well as your assistant. 23 witnesses.
I know, she's great. I'll have to check this out. This one really looks good. And that also stuck out to me. That's a huge number. And so I want to check it out. This sounds really good. And thanks for bringing this up because I'm going to check
Ms.Demeanor, man, providing content here.
Yes.
Jules, your thoughts, I'm sure that refresh your memory on the case.
Did. It is an excellent case. And another person you need to look at is John Mack's work and the work that they did together. And there's a case of a woman named Deborah Cobble, who was in Indiana, who had lots of even trace evidence on the ground and stuff that they had picked up, and she had multiple experiences. But I also want to say, when you're looking into this stuff, I think that some people see, some people can't, or there would have been more than 23 witnesses of such a thing, but I believe that some people can see the stuff because of their brain waves being, in the right zone, theta or whatever it is. And other people, it just, like when they show that thing where they take the psychological test and all the people are in a room and this monkey walks through, and then afterward they ask if anything weird happened and nobody saw the monkey, and I think it's a lot like that. But once the phenomenon knows you can see it, it gets an interest in you. So I'm just giving everybody a cautionary, thing that if you do see these things, that don't be surprised if you see other things, because once they know that you see, they like you. They want to come and show themselves even more. At least that's how it's been for most of the people I know, like myself, that are experiencers. Definitely excellent old cases, and I fully recommend everybody taking a dive into that rabbit hole.
One thing I'll say that is common for residents of what we call the city in New York, obviously you guys know we don't call it New York City, we just call it the city, is that if you are a resident, you don't look up, because looking up makes you look like a tourist. It makes you vulnerable. So people in the city don't look up. So it doesn't surprise me all that much. In fact, UFO researchers will tell you, no matter where you live, if you have a clear view of the night sky, they'll say, look up, look up, look up, because the airline pilots are seeing it. They're reporting it to Americans for Safe Aerospace, which is run by, among other people, former Navy pilot Ryan Graves, who was there. Ryan Graves in 2015 was flying in a training area off the coast of Virginia, off of, I want to say it was the USS Roosevelt. And he and his mates saw a cube flying inside a sphere. So you have a cube, a black cube, and inside of it was a clear sphere where the sides of the sphere were touching the corners of the cube. So now how that, in my knowledge of aviation and aeronautics, how something like that flies, I don't know, can't explain that, nor could his mates. So a lot of pilots are reporting now because they feel comfortable talking to Ryan Graves and all the different pilots that he has as part of his association. So there's a lot out there. I can't speak specifically to this case and say, oh, I think it's credible or I think it's not credible. There are other cases I'll talk about to you. I would tell you I bet my life on, like the Tic Tac incident in 2004. I bet you my life that that was some other intelligence that created that craft based on not only its ability to go up, down, left, right. You guys notice that aircraft are omnidirectional. Thrust is omnidirectional. But this thing was moving up, down, left, right. And then when the two pilots made an ingress and intercept on this aircraft and got into a little bit of a circular Mexican standoff, and then they tried to make a maneuver where they pointed their aircraft right at it to see what it was going to do, it disappeared. My snapping isn't working. It disappeared from physical sight. Not only did it disappear from sight, it also disappeared from the ship's Aegis radar. You have an Aegis cruiser that provides a big radar envelope around a carrier group, so you can't just fly over a carrier group and decide you want to drop ordnance on top of, maybe any one of 8 ships or whatever, or 9 ships that's in a carrier battle group, right? So you'll have an Aegis cruiser that's like an air traffic control. It's what's called a phased array radar that's looking out 360 degrees at all times, not sweeping around the way that you would know in a traditional radar where it's mechanical, right? And so when this Tic Tac craft disappeared from David Fravor and Alex Dietrich, the wingman, we interviewed her on this show on Cab. And she said, it disappeared. I said, do you mean disappeared? Like disappeared from, she said, disappeared. Okay. Not just zoomed away. No, disappear. Okay. And then what was it? A couple seconds later, it was 60 miles away and reappeared on the radar. And the ship said, Skipper, that thing's over at your cap point right now. So whatever that thing is. So that I put my life on. And if people ask me, is Bigfoot real? And if I live or die, if I'm right or wrong, I'd say I bet my life on it, because there's no way tens of thousands of people are lying about it. Otherwise, you got to go up to each one of them and go, liar, 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 liar. And these are a cross section of America. These are our teachers. These are our police, our firemen, our military, anybody you can name, doctors, lawyers, everybody that goes out hunting or goes out in the wilderness has seen these things. Hiking, backpacking, hunting, fishing. So
because it's their area. Notice they're not coming into cities. We're going into their
territory
environment. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
And
now, what's
my husband, Mr. Demeanor, is originally from Queens, New York, and he will tell you, don't ever look up if you're walking in the city. You just don't do that.
We don't do that. But
we went back a few years ago, and my son and I were total tourists. We're like, what? And he was mortified, just absolutely mortified. I'm like, hey, you're a tourist with us because we don't live here.
Exactly right. Yeah. When I go there, I consider myself a tourist, even though I grew up 40 miles from the city. But what Julie will tell you is a lot of Bigfoots are very much on the edge of suburban and rural neighborhoods. And hers was in the edge of her neighborhood where she could see it, right, Jules? Cul-de-sac or something, or what?
Our road had a woods with a field in the next block. The whole block was like just half of it was woods and half of it was field. And I saw him at the edge of the woods picking berries. And on the other side of that was a dump for the factory that was nearby. It was an iron foundry. So, it could have lived in the dump if it lives on the earth, which I am not convinced of. But, it had plenty of space it could have come from. And so it's not always in just woods. I mean, I was in the street playing a game with some people when I saw the one I saw, and I was the only one that saw it, but I'm definitely sure of what I saw. So, you just kind of have to go with that. And it definitely has shown up in places that that you wouldn't think they'd show up. I think they can be anywhere they want to be, pretty much. And that's
Jules,
it.
I don't know if you were on with us when we had Doug Hychek. Doug Hychek worked for National Geographics. He was the creator of Monster Quest, if you remember that. And Doug told us, I mean, Doug has been a researcher for many years. And he said, I know and believe firmly that many Bigfoot exist on the edges of society. They're very curious about humans. They're very curious about what we do. A lot of children that see them, they have shown up at Little League baseball games where people will see them in the edge of the woods in the outfield. How many baseball fields have you seen like that? People have seen them there. There are people that I've seen interviews with Native Americans that live up in Alaska. Obviously, in Alaska, they're not going to be used to seeing humans. They're not used to interacting with humans. And I have heard of very aggressive encounters in Alaska. So I have told people, if you're in Alaska and you're a Bigfooter, or you're interested in research, I recommend that you do not go there because of that. But in the areas like Minnesota and Wisconsin and areas where you don't have to be that far into I've heard people say I was a half a mile from a road, or I mean, I've seen state troopers and watch them cross the road in front of the camera, a thing walking like a cross-country skier, that looks big and hairy and beat feet across the road with these big, long arms. So they are many times near society, and some of them don't. They need the fresh water. They need deer, elk. One of the things they do, will make you sad if you're sort of an animal person. When the way that they hunt deer, they will break their legs so that they can't run away. There are people that have found deer where it broke one leg and the deer got away and things like that. So there'll be deer with a leg hanging. Some of them, they'll break 2 or 3 legs. I heard once a hunter in Pennsylvania watched them funnel deer. They had one chasing one with his arms up in the air, chased him into a choke point, and then they just heard the horrific sounds because they have a tendency to snap their neck. They'll snap their neck, and if they're alive, they'll break their legs so they can't run away, or they snap their neck. They'll put them up in a tree, and then they'll go and get more when they have enough. They can't eat the meat per se, but they eat the guts, the parts that you don't have to cook. So yeah, there's a lot of information out there. Thousands and thousands of hunters have seen them. I've heard many hunters say that they peed on themselves because they just didn't know what to do and didn't even think about firing at it. Bia heard one about a very, very, very famous encounter of a British woman in Mountain View, California, near Apple. Remember in that one, Bia, where the male figure was trying to be aggressive, the female in the clan grabbed him, and when he pulled away and went towards the woman, she passed out. She was taking photography on a beach, in a rural where the forest meets the beach kind of thing. That woman was dragged back to her car and left in the car park area.
Yeah, that one was pretty interesting. I like that one.
Claire, yeah. She went and called the police. Oh no, you saw a bear. They called in government officials. They threatened her. You saw a bear, all that stuff. She said, no, I didn't. I know what British people are. I know what a bear is. And that was not the bear, was kind of her take on it. But they basically, when she passed out, the Bigfoots grabbed a hold of her jacket or grabbed her pants, and they drug her back to the car and left her sitting by her rental vehicle. So it's crazy, man. Crazy stuff.
It is.
Yeah. She, to just close the loop on that story, and anybody who wants to hear that entire account, it's on Sasquatch Chronicles with Wes Germer, and I can send it to you. And it's a thrilling account. But essentially, she went to photograph the sunset, and she exits a trailhead onto the beach. She walks down the beach, and then she sits up on the rocks so that she can get the horizon of the sun meeting the ocean. That's what she was waiting for. All of a sudden, they come down the same trail 20 minutes later and start playing around in the water. And they're messing with seaweed. And there was a couple of a juvenile male, a female. There was a big male and a what looked like a mother. And when she dropped her lens and that thing went and looked at her, never broke eye contact. Naturally, she's urinating on herself. She doesn't know what to do. And she said the two of them were arguing, having like a marital spat. He was trying to go to her. She was holding him back. And then when he finally broke free and made a beeline for her, she just passed out. Next thing is she woke up next to her car. How about that, huh? Anyway, all right. I digress. I've heard so many great Bigfoot accounts that there's a lot of shows. Sasquatch Theory, Sasquatch Chronicles, obviously Matt Knapp's show, Bigfoot Crossroads. He's a friend of the show, has been on Cab many, many times. So final thoughts, Ms.Demeanor. Let's take it around before we close out.
It just confirms that I am a blithering idiot in life because I don't have the answers. So I'm just going to roll on down the road and like live in ignorance. Ignorance is bliss, right? Although last night, Bia and I did a lot of educating. So knowledge is power. And so you should educate yourself, but ignorance is bliss.
Every day is an opportunity for us to be less ignorant than when we go to bed than when we woke up, because there's just so much that we just don't know. Bia, final thoughts.
Well, my final thought is, I think it's good to, again, awareness. I think it's good to know that we're never going to really fully understand everything. But, I'm willing to listen. There are a lot of unexplained things that have happened, and we're never going to, I don't think we're meant to understand everything, but I'm willing to listen, and it's definitely interesting and hypothesize on what's going on.
Yeah, well, I hope to do more of these because this was a lot of fun. PI Loren, Katie, oh my God, a whole new line of inquiry for you.
I know. It's a totally different world. No, I echo what the ladies said. I love to learn. So, it's a new idea. And I think, if there are animal species that we still don't know about, anything is possible, and education and smart discussions and things like that are great. So
should we do first person Bigfoot encounters next time? Like I'll play a series of like 3 or 4 of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And Loren, make sure, and also Ms.Demeanor, make sure you tell them where to find you on X and your YouTube respective YouTube channels. Okay, sorry, just want to make sure.
That's next. Jules, final thoughts.
Well, I enjoy learning all the time too. I mean, I am just a sponge. And part of what experiencing Sasquatch and UFOs and poltergeist activity and stuff did for me was send me to the library, where a sweet librarian told me you should learn about the things you're afraid of, and sent me to the 0.032 section of the library, which is all the real weird stuff, but done from a nonfiction point of view. And that helped me to not be so scared when weird shit would happen. Forgive me for using that word, but it really helped me to just observe and to be calm about it. And if it's a scary thing, you don't want to feed it. And, so you try to be the observer, and experiencing these things tends to widen your bandwidth. Many people have experienced that, so that, like I was saying before, if you see one thing, sometimes you start seeing more, because it's almost like it opens aperture so that you can. And I see this, I guess, from a little bit of different view than the rest of you do. But I can't help it. It's the only portal I got to look out of, because I just experienced a lot of bizarre stuff, And I think it's great that 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 you're curious. And it's a beautiful thing to me, because the only accounts I know are completely true are the ones I experienced myself. But I never disbelieve someone else's account, because it can be weird as all get out. And you're thinking, oh heavens, that can't be right. But you weren't there. And you don't know, it might have just been that weird. So I try not to count anybody. I know what I've seen sounds pretty dang weird to most people, so I'm not gonna knock anybody's experience. And that's just, we all have to. I know that there is more to reality than they teach you in school or anything like that, and I'm happy that I know it, even though sometimes it was scary getting to this point,
I was going to say, Doug Chychek is like you, the director of Monster Quest. He's a trifecta. He's had paranormal. He has definitely had Bigfoot experiences. He's dedicated the latter part of his life to, and he's also had UFO sightings. So there are people, like Jules is saying, once that door is open, a lot of people have had multiple Bigfoot sightings, and some people are like, I just want to have one Class A sighting during the daytime, close up, instead of, So, but anyway, that thank you for adding that, Jules. That experiences are our window into the unexplained. Ms.Demeanor, tell us what you got coming up next, and then we'll go around the horn.
So, yeah, Monday next week, I'm going to be covering the Suzanne Clark Simpson case out of Texas. Wednesday, I'm planning on doing an update on the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. And then the following week, November 10th through the 13th, I'm replaying the Raoul Valley trial on my channel for those days. So he has a hearing coming up on November 17th for the lesser charges. So this will kind of take us right into that hearing.
What day?
So that's kind of what I have.
What days were the Valley trial?
Monday, November 10th through Thursday, November 13th.
Okay, I'm tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to be replaying it, doing some commentary, kind of get everybody up to speed. And I do, fingers crossed, I am still working on a very, very special guest that if I can get this guest, I will be, I don't know that I'll be able to sleep. I'm so excited to talk to this person. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to have to tune in, because I want to know about the other cases that you talked about as well. Because I'm like you explained Raoul Valley to Bea and myself. I'd like to know these cases. Bea, what do you got coming up? I know something pretty big happening soon.
Oh yes. So I'll be doing a fundraiser. Okay, let's see. This is Thursday. Okay, so Saturday at 6 on Mazza's show, I'll be doing a fundraiser for Kelsey Fitzsimmons. And then you'll have to help me with the name of her channel. I'm going to be on Heather Honey's
Facts, Opinions, and something.
Yes.
Real Talk. Facts, Opinion, and Real Talk.
Right. I will be on there Sunday at 7 p.m. So looking forward. Yes, looking forward to that.
Alabama Heather. Loren, Katie, what do you got coming up, my friend?
Yes. I am also going to be on the Kelsey Fitzsimmons fundraiser on Mazza Media on Saturday. So I will see you there, and hopefully everyone here will tune in. We must free her. So, and yeah, so I will be there.
And so, yeah, so Loren, PI Loren, Katie. Also, is there a name of your, and I'm going to have them all in the show notes for the podcast, which will come out tomorrow, and then I'll put it in the YouTube. But what is the name of yours? Is it just PI Loren, Katie?
Yeah, it's just my Vellucci Investigations. So
there you go.
Yeah, I'm Loren Katie on Twitter, and then Common Sense Investigator on YouTube, which is new and hopefully up and running. But
all right, Jules. Any I know you're gonna be with us. Yeah. So we're hoping to have Brad Bradley coming up. Did you have some? Go ahead, Lo. What's that?
I'm going to be in all the chats. I said I'm going to
That's
be in
right.
all the
Yeah.
chats. That's where I'm
You can find
here.
Jules in the chat, and I,
Them, I'm and all of the ones for the Karen Reed stuff. And if I'm not there, I'm probably lurking. But I'm a regular show, and I'm trying to find y'all's links. So I will let you go on talk and say goodbye. And I'm going to try to find the links for these lovely ladies.
all
Awesome.
right, darling.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Jules.
lot, Jules.
Great to have you.
We should have Brad Bradley next week to talk about Amy Bradley, and Bia has questions for Brad and wants to talk about maybe what new things might have popped up or what else they may be able to do. And then there's going to be a ladies roundtable coming up also within the next couple of weeks. There'll be another ladies roundtable, subject matter TBD, and very excited about that because it's basically the hottest thing going on Cab is the ladies roundtable. Let's face it, they're tolerating me so they can get to the ladies roundtable. So,
Chicks rule, buddy.
I can't
That's
argue.
right.
I can't argue with that. I mean, it's more fun to
We're
watch you guys.
outnumbered in this group, I think. So
Yes, no question. So thank you very much, ladies. It was so much fun. And so the next time, it sounds like if everybody is in favor, we'll go ahead and we'll do Bigfoot for the next one and do some. Yeah. Okay. All right.
We'll do all the things.
There you go. Yeah. Man, Bigfoot stuff. It's just I don't know. It's just fascinating. I mean, Bigfoot is every bit as fascinating to me as UFOs and true crime and paranormal, etc. It's just missing persons. So
it's a mystery that we want to solve, right? So
yeah, I mean, there's just so much I didn't even get to tell you, like the group out in Washington, the Olympic Project, went out there and found where they made beds. They basically took layers and layers and layers of foliage from the forest floor. They basically drilled down, took core samples, and figured out, clearly they've made beds here. So there's so much, there's a lot of information that's out there. So next time we will do Bigfoot. On behalf of Ms.Demeanor, Boston, Bia, Loren, Katie, and Jules, this DJ saying peace out, one love, and we will see you down the road.
bye, ladies. Thank you.